Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us on this interview today. I cannot believe who I'm talking to. We have Gwen Blakely Kinsler with us today, the founder of CGOA. Hello. Wow. This is just amazing. For you all to know, and just so I can introduce who I am your chair for the Hall of Fame. And of course, well, who else would we have in our Hall of Fame than the founder? And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited, as you can tell, to have you here.
It's my pleasure.
30th anniversary.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Why don't we start at the beginning and tell us about yourself.
Well, I live in Indianapolis, Indiana now for the last 7 years, near my 2 daughters and grandchildren, which I love. I'm still a member of my original CGOA chapter in Illinois and love hearing how dynamic they are all these years. That's the first chapter of CGOA, the Northern Illinois chapter. It's in a suburb of Chicago, where I lived before I moved here. Yeah, life
and
in
they're
Indiana
still going.
It is all these years. It's never stopped. Yeah, and they've really, I'm so proud of the chapter because they've really set an example of how to be a fabulous chapter and show this and guide other people who are trying to start chapters, as an example of how it works.
How it works and how to be done. So for those of you who are thinking about possibly starting a chapter, look into them. My chapter of CGOA. So you can find that in our members in the chapter section. Yes. Find local chapters and reach out to them. And I'm more than sure we'll be more than happy to help you do that if that's something that you're considering, which I would suggest. It's a great way to get everybody together. So how did you learn how to crochet? How did that come about?
I learned to crochet in Honduras, Central America, where my husband and I were Peace Corps volunteers. Oh. I have a degree in nursing, and I started a clinic in our little village, and the 2 ladies that were my nursing assistants were always crocheting. It's a way of life in Honduras. They walk along the street crocheting. They would crochet in between patients, and they crochet without patterns and with fine threads and small hooks. So I was intrigued. I asked them to show me how, and something, I can't even explain it, just grabbed me. And so I learned a little bit. And then when we got done with the Peace Corps and came back to the States, I wanted to learn more and learn how to read patterns. And that was in the 70s, early 70s. And at that time, I have to say that crochet was so artistic. It was also very funky. I mean, we'd just gotten out of the 60s. And so I went on a spree of buying books and patterns and used books from the 60s and was very inspired. So I say I'm fairly, self-taught. But yeah, learning from books and other people. But I didn't know anyone else at that time that crocheted.
So that obviously spurred your love for crochet is experiencing all that. And then the 70s, what a great time to crochet with all the artsy stuff, like you said, that they were doing. So what does crochet mean to you? I mean, does it have any significance? Have you tied that to anything?
It means so much to me. It's what I do every day. I hate to say I'm obsessed, but I am. I feel like I can always continue learning. And in the last years since COVID, I would say, or during COVID, I changed my focus to working on my crochet art. And I still love following patterns that other people have written. I'll make things that way, but I'm trying to really focus and get pieces of art done and ready when a show comes along that has a theme, that I might have something that I could fit into that and get accepted. And I have exhibited locally here in a couple of or 3 galleries. So that's been a lot of fun. And seeing people be amazed by crochet as art, because people don't think about that a lot, unless, people are really experienced crocheters and may have seen that before. So that's been fun for me. And I was
so
going to say also, at one point we lived in Florida, and at that time I joined the Embroiderers Guild of America. And that is really what got me thinking about not the Crochet Guild, but my question was, why don't we crocheters have something like this? I would go to the meetings and I would participate in workshops, and they would have big designers come from other places and offer these workshops, and just their regular meetings were very stimulating. I learned a lot about embroidery, and I would be sitting there at meetings with my crochet kind of under the table, and I had to be doing it. And I got to thinking, this is crazy. Why don't we crocheters have something like this? So I think those were my beginning thoughts and I have to say, a lot of starting the guild was selfish on my part, because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn from experts. And because having seen that for the embroiderers, we deserve that. We crocheters should have that too. So,
right.
Yeah, well, those were some early thoughts I had.
I'm only going to speak for myself, but that was part of my thought process in looking for the Crochet Guild, to see if there was, because so many other organizations have stuff like that. So, all right. So how did that percolating, and thank you for being selfish. I don't think it's selfish, but thank you for feeling that way, because that gave us CGOA, the Crochet Guild of America. So how did that thought process, that I want more, I want to learn more, transcend into this group we have?
Well, there again, in 1988, we found ourselves living in Ecuador, South America. My husband's job took us there, and my children were in an American school, and it was quite a cultural experience overall, and a good one. So I met other families. I was a Girl Scout leader, and there were other ladies interested in crafts. So I was doing my crafts and enjoying the textiles that are very famous from Ecuador. But I was lonely, number one, living away from the States, in certain ways. And I was thinking, it would be nice to be able to communicate with other crocheters who like it as much as I do, because I didn't really find crocheters there in my group of women. So back then you could send letters to the editor, which you can still today, but Threads magazine was one that I knew about, and it did cover all mediums, fiber arts or fiber mediums. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I write a letter to them and ask if any other people enjoy crochet as much as I do? And the other little thing was, back then I was getting a little bored with Afghans and toilet paper covers. That was very popular. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be doing that. So I said, is anybody else tired of paper covers? Well, it was amazing. I started getting letters back, and we had a P.O. box in the States, so our mail would be delivered once a week. And I'm getting these letters, and people are just going crazy, saying, well, they couldn't believe that someone else could think that way, and they love crochet, and they want to learn more, and this and that. And it just went on. I must have gotten 100 letters, not immediately, but over time.
Right.
And they also were saying, I wish there was a group for crocheters. And so some very interesting people and very dedicated to their crocheting, enthused about it. And so then we were there 2 years, or no, we actually were gone for 4 years. But while I was still gone, I decided to start a newsletter for crocheters. And since, postage was a little awkward, I put another ad, I'm pretty sure, another announcement in Threads saying, if anyone would like to receive a crochet newsletter, send $1 and that'll pay for the postage. And so I started doing this, and it was so rustic because I had to go to a store and use the copier. I had to cut and paste, and I just came up with these little articles and things about crochet. And through that process, then getting names and addresses, and people were saying we really should have a get together. And so that was, kind of brewing in my head. So when we returned in 1988 to 1992, I was already planning on somehow figuring out how to have a get together. And in 1994, it happened.
Wow.
But before that, I had met some people locally in Chicago. That's where we came back to. And they were saying, we don't need to wait until August when the conference happens. Why don't we have a meeting beforehand? So in June, 15 people showed up again from a little ad in the paper. There's going to be a crochet group, blah, blah. And 15 people showed up. And those people, not all of them, but several, are still members of the Northern Illinois chapter. And so we say we were the first chapter, although it was very informal. And then the conference happened in Chicago in August, and 90 people showed up.
Wow.
They paid, I think it was $90. And I am this stranger. Nobody knows really who I am. And they were willing to pay $90, show up. It was at DePaul University. So we did save a lot of money by using the dorms and the facilities for food. And it was amazing, the enthusiasm of these people. And there were some important people also that showed up, such as Annie of Annie's Attic.
Oh.
And her assistant, Deborah. And so back then, you could dial 411 and get people's phone numbers. And so from these books I had, these artists that I admired, I contacted them and a lot of people, and that's how I got teachers to come. And believe it or not, all of the teachers except one were willing to come and teach for free. They were so excited that they would have a group of crocheters that they could share with,
right,
and teach a class. And so that's how that happened. And then due to the dedication of crocheters and the kindness and willing to share, one person volunteered to do the next conference a year from August. And that happened in New Jersey. So from there, things started snowballing. Different areas of the country wanted to volunteer and host. And so that's how we kept going in the first few years, moving around the country.
Wow. How exciting. I mean, that building process is always exciting. How much fun is that? So what is
Yeah,
it like for you to look back now and see, where that little beginning of I just want to get together with friends and learn and grow individually and corporately, and now to where we are today. What are your thoughts? What do you see?
Yeah, I am so proud that we have lasted 30 years. It is still amazing to me. And I'm really proud of crocheters who are so willing to give and share their expertise and share their enthusiasm, and to help others, mentor new people, teach, and jump in with these areas of expertise like you have. If someone is an accountant, maybe they volunteer to be the treasurer, etc. People have professional skills that we needed along the way, because we were a group of volunteers for the first 10 years. And so, yeah, we had many, many volunteers that were willing to be on the board and bring their skills to help us get through. We had to do the 501c3, and so that was one of the first big projects that someone knew about that. How do you do that? And we got it done. So yeah, that is, I think, what really characterizes our guild is just goodness and enthusiasm.
Right. So what would you say is your favorite thing about, if you could pick one thing out of CGOA, what would that one thing be?
Oh, wow.
All right.
About
Maybe a
the
tough one.
organization, you mean?
Well, just about everything between the classes, the people, the organization, how it all, what would be the one thing if you had to say this is CGOA, this one thing is exemplifies CGOA, what would that be?
Yeah, it's got to be the members, because a lot of times the first time they've met all these other crocheters is coming to a conference, and they have, sacrificed maybe to have to take off of work and the cost of doing that. And they come and they're just open to meeting everybody and sharing who they are and learning from the others that are there. And if you've been, you know that we sit around in the lobby and we take it over. We take every seat because we spend our moments that are free from classes getting to know each other and sharing and crocheting. We're crocheting, and that impresses a lot of hotel front desks.
Yes.
Sometimes we've taken over and decorated the lobby with crochet in various places.
That would
So
have been
yeah,
a
I
lot of
think,
fun.
yeah, it's fun for always, either if you're in a chapter or in your first conference somewhere else, maybe that you've never been before.
Right. Right. Yeah, my first conference was 22, and that was in New Orleans, and that was just amazing. I mean, between the location and the guild, I mean, talk about being in seventh heaven. That was just so much fun. And to meet people personally, to have that opportunity to meet, you've been talking to them maybe virtually because of whatever classes or whatnot, which I think is, what do you think about that? That now they're doing classes online, like throughout the year. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's fantastic because not everybody is in a chapter. I wish everybody was. But it's a way that they can continue to learn throughout the year, and the savings as well, and what it costs you to do that. And the thing that you said about meeting people, I remember times when someone had come maybe for the first time to a conference, and they see someone, Lily Chin, very famous, and they're just like, they're telling someone else, look over there, that's Lily Chin.
Right, right.
They've seen her in magazines, they've seen maybe her videos, they have her books, and to be in the same room with these teachers and there's many more, not just Lily. I think of Pauline Turner, who came from England for that first conference in 94 and taught.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I believe we had a post conference for a while. And at that first conference, we did that. So that was 2 more days that people could sign up for and get real intense learning from Pauline. So, yeah, that's something I think about, is of all the changes that we've made, and it's not really it's more like growing and thinking of new ideas and incorporating and adjusting and,
Right.
coming to the best place you can each year for the conferences.
Right, right. Yeah, it's really great to be able to steer people to CGOA and have them be able to join and have already experiences, because then you meet them in person when you get a chance to go to a conference and go, I know you. We're physically being able to meet, but I know you, and that's such a great camaraderie, and it really, picks everybody's spirits up. I think it was just, and the age range of people is amazing. So much fun. So much
And
fun.
how that doesn't matter.
Right.
Everybody still gets along, and they learn from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really great. So, what do you see now moving forward for CGOA? Like, what do you think what's your vision for the next 30 years?
Well, kind of a dream would be that everybody would see the value of joining a chapter or starting one.
Mm-hmm.
It is just real easy. All it takes are two people sitting down together to crochet, and then it grows, especially if you decide to be in a Starbucks to crochet, a Panera, and people walk by and see that and, oh, what are you doing? And well, come join us. And it grows slowly. And it's still, it's very amazing what you can learn each month at a meeting of a chapter. And chapters also learn when they go to conferences that they can bring a lily chin to their own chapter. If they have enough people that have paid dues for a while and they've got a little bit in their budget. So that can happen as well. I mean, the possibilities are amazing for what a chapter can do. And then for a chapter to get involved in the planning of a conference and come and be on committees is so helpful to the boards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there has been some talk, or I've read in some minutes, that the board wants to make more emphasis of communication with chapters. And to think that for 30 years, the dues for CGOA have never changed. It's always been
really?
$35. And the same with my chapter. I just renewed for $15, and for 30 years, that's been the cost of joining this same chapter.
Wow.
So it's a bargain for all you get. It really is.
Right. Wow. 15. I mean, where else can you learn so much, get so much out of your favorite craft, and it just gives you so much ability to open your horizons and see new things, and it really is just something to look at. And if this is the first time you're ever hearing about CGOA, look into it. You really should. It's an amazing organization. I can't be prouder. So you were mentioning art, and what are you doing? I'm curious. Can you show us anything?
Possibly. I love freeform crochet. And there you can see them better, I guess. I mean, not clearly, but I love freeform crochet. So I've done some pieces of that and framed them.
So that right behind you that we've been looking at this whole time, that right there is your artwork. That's gorgeous.
I don't know why it got so dark in my screen, but
technology.
Yeah. One of those is a piece of wood I found, and I do love natural things. I, at one point, had kind of a theme, which was covering my world in crochet. I think crochet can make a lot of things in the world better, even nature, if I may be so bold. But
right.
So this is a a gnarl, if you know what that is. It's like a knot in wood in a stick. and I covered it in crochet and dolled it up a little bit, and it's in that lower frame. I call it gnarly. It's a little kooky, but that's me.
And that's the thing about crocheters. I remember I did go in 2019. CGOA was in Portland, Oregon. And my husband had been in a really bad motorcycle accident. So I really couldn't attend any of the classes. He's fine now. He's walking and doing, and he's riding again. So he's fine. But anyway, but he was still laid up. And here was CGOA finally in my neck of the woods. And I really couldn't attend classes, but I had gone to the marketplace because heaven forbid Sandra can't go shopping, right? And I grabbed a couple of my girlfriends with me and I said, we're going. And even if it's just for the day, for a couple hours, let's just go shopping. Oh my gosh. I had so much fun. And one of the interesting things is, and I have some of the yarn still because I'm still going to do it. I just haven't done it yet. But I still have that yarn. It was very textural. It just had all kinds of stuff in it. It was really wild. And in talking to the person selling it, the vendor, she was saying she loved going to crochet events because we're adventurous. Of the fiber art, we're very adventurous. We'll take just about anything and crochet with it, and it's true.
Yes,
so true. We're a unique group when it comes to that.
Yeah, I say if it bends, I can crochet with it.
What would you say? What would you recommend to others how to get involved in CGOA to help keep us moving into the next 30 years?
I would say if you would to start volunteering would be easiest if you're in a chapter already. Start helping out there. And if you're able to come to a conference, volunteer to do anything you can. There's so many small jobs that are needed that are so helpful. You don't have to be a chairperson right away, but come to the conference and just help with the little, passing, walking around when the door prizes are passed out and passing them out, helping that way. Simple things, but people get to know you. You get to know the people that are in charge on the board and learn more about what they need and read your newsletters and respond if they're asking for help. I think volunteering is such a gratifying thing to do. I think we gain as much as we give when we volunteer. And if people don't realize that, it's a lot of times real easy to start out, and then you get kind of, enmeshed in what's going on, and you maybe take on more. And that's how we get along. That's how we started, as I said, for 10 years. I will say that I was very relieved when we hired our first management company. I think I was president 3 different times during that 10 years. We had our ups and our downs. So it was great to have the everyday tasks that can be so tedious done by the management company. And that was the Craft Yarn Council, a branch of, I'm sorry, not the Craft Yarn Council, but Craft Yarn Council did start out helping us. Printing our newsletter, I believe, was something they did, and that was so helpful. And then we learned about this management company through them, and they were very generous to us. They saw the importance of a crochet guild, and they wanted us to be successful. So they stayed with us we started out small with the management doing certain things, and then it increased. And that's if you have volunteers that can really do some of those tasks, the management company doesn't need to do everything. I don't know what's planned at this point, but I think it's a good thing. it's a lot of work for volunteers, especially the board. And I think there's some good guidance also that comes from management companies on the business of running a not-for-profit. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of nuances with not-for-profits versus just a regular 501c or 503c. So you're moving on more into the crochet art world.
I am.
So for somebody who, let's say somebody who's been crocheting for a while, we've talked about beginners and having them come on. For somebody who has been crocheting for a while, what guidance would you give them as far as how to really open up their skill levels? Because crocheting itself is really simple. You get the slip stitch, you get the slip knot, you get your single crochet, and if you've got the double crochet down, you're raring to go. But somebody's been doing stuff for a while, but not really opened up that world of creative expression with it. They've kind of stuck, how we get into a rut. What would you
Yes.
suggest for them to kind of open that up and blossom a little?
I would suggest freeform crochet. And the hardest thing about that is letting yourself be freed from pattern reading, because it's painting with yarn. Basically, you just start out and you start doing twists and turns, and it's those stitches coming out of your head, although that's not to say you can't use a book of crochet stitches to remind you, or to get, how can I do this part and that part? And there happens to be an international freeform guild, which is only online. And they have challenges each year. They share just like any other group. And a lot of them do come to our conferences and teach freeform crochet. And so, yeah, and I would also say, if you have books, look for books that are artistically inclined. And I have to say, I get back to the 60s and 70s, where you can find pictures and descriptions that are inspiring, get you started. And just Google freeform crochet and you'll see examples. And then that might start your mind thinking about, oh, that doesn't look, I see that stitch. I know how to do that. Yeah,
Right.
it's so that would be my best idea. Or also you could interpret a painting you might see, something from a magazine. You can turn that into crochet. It's not easy, but it's just a way of seeing colors, how they work together from other art, to get you started that way. Yeah.
So, and when it comes to yarns, what kind of yarns do you use?
I have become a little snobbish. I've just finally faced a fact that I do not do well crocheting with wool. I start to get itchy.
Oh,
But you know how it is when you go to a conference, you get a lot of beautiful free yarn. And having designed as well, companies are very generous to send you yarn to use when you have a design to submit. So that's what I use. It's a little higher quality cottons, a lot of textured yarns in the freeform crochet. It's amazing how a little edge of a fluffy texture can turn your piece into art very easily. So yeah, that's what I use. And I still use fine threads, like a number 10 or a number 30. Depends on, of course, what I'm doing, what I need. So I'm on a challenge to myself now to try to get along with using what I have, instead of thinking I've got to go out and buy something specific. And I find that satisfying, because it does challenge me to make something work. Yeah, that I already have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I would imagine you have quite a collection. So if we were to talk, because you mentioned earlier my organization of my yarns over here, you were talking about, and I'd like to go back to when you were talking about Honduras and how you learned about it, because I have affinity for thread crochet. When you learned, you first learned with thread, which
Yes.
a lot of people find very challenging. What were you making at that point?
That's yeah, I remember there at that time, there were these skirts that were made out of thread and just maybe like a shell pattern, and maybe there'd be spaces so you could see through the skirt and they would line it with fabric. So the first thing though that I learned were these little, we call them cozies today, little things to cover a glass.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was ice, it wouldn't be wet, you'd put this on the bottom. And I still have a couple of those. I just cannot get rid of them. It's such a memory of the beginning of my crochet career. But the skirt was not such a success. It was all kind of wonky, and I got rid of that. But yeah, so I learned just very, very basic from them. And I guess I didn't know any difference as far as thread compared to the rest of it. And
Right.
so it didn't bother me too much, except I guess on the skirt. I
On
don't
the
know.
skirt. So
Yeah.
what was it that they were mostly? I would think they were probably mostly clothing that they were making with the that they were crocheting.
I think
The leggings for the
doilies
women.
possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah, they didn't have fancy yarns at all, and they couldn't afford much at all.
Right.
So it was just something that was passed down, as well as the patterns were in their heads. And so
Right.
I didn't learn, well, this was all in Spanish too. So I didn't learn a lot of specific pattern designs
Uh-huh.
from them. They just showed me, and I went from there just repeating what they had told me to do.
And
So
you know what? That's an
it was very,
interesting
very
thing that you're
basic.
saying. So you were there in Honduras. You learned Spanish as your second language, and Spanish is my first language. English is actually my second language. I was born in Argentina.
Oh,
So
wow.
I love hearing this, but right now Japanese crochet is very popular. The Russian freeform crochet I also
Mhm.
hear is very popular. I'm seeing a lot of that going.
Exquisite. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So have you tried any of their patterns? Have you looked at those? Because I know they do graph that out.
Uh-huh.
Um, so have you tried any of those? Any
I
ideas
do
about
like,
those?
yeah, I have. I have some of the Japanese books. We had a Japanese mall in Chicagoland where we could get
Oh,
some great books. And I do love the simple crochet. Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, but it's very helpful. Very helpful.
so
So, yeah.
the so once you have the symbols, are you finding that the symbols are the same?
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
it's becoming
So
more international.
X for single crochet, one line for double,
Uh-huh.
you know. Yeah. So once you learn that, it is a little more tedious, I would say, because of the counting and just keeping track of those small um, pictures that come in the
Uh-huh.
books. But I know people will take those and blow them up to help
Right.
to keep track, and that way you can check off as you've done a round or a row. Yeah.
So,
So
and I know that graphing out, using symbols for crochet is a relatively new thing that's come into the crochet world. It's just interesting to me. Were you hearing when that first started to come out from people? How were they feeling about that? With so many changes in our lives, and to see changes like that in our own crafts that we do, what were people feeling like when that first came out? Because it's so popular now.
that was kind of you either hate it or love it situation at the beginning. And there's a person, Deborah Hamburg, who she's retired now, but she was Annie Potter's assistant, and she became an expert in writing out those those symbols. So she was hired out to add those to patterns that were maybe written, but then you'd have the symbol beside it. So you could choose either one. Or sometimes they start out with a couple of rows of writing and then they go straight into the graph to finish. So she did a lot of that. To me, that was mind-boggling how anyone could do that.
Right?
Yeah.
I've tried my hand. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I can write it out better than I can graph it out, but I'll get there. We'll get there. We've got our thing to do. So is that something that you made that you're wearing?
Yes, this is a pattern I followed. And I wore two things. I don't think you can, yeah, it is pineapple pattern.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my basics, fundamentals of crochet that I earned, my certificate. And bead crochet is something that I like a lot. And I made this one time to wear to the conference. It says CGOA, if you can't tell.
We can see it.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's bead crocheting that you did there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So that's a graph, gorgeous. Like fillet crochet. You just, and then you do one bead with each stitch. That takes some patience, but I do like it. I think I like tedium, possibly. I don't know.
That is gorgeous. That looks like a lot of fun. Okay, another new project to start. All right, wonderful. Oh my gosh, this has been. I'd like to just sit all day and talk to you about all of this because this is just so exciting. But I know you've got things to do and we need to move forward. What would you say to anybody, either our current members, our board, anybody looking into CGOA, as far as what this art form means to you and what it means to carry it forward?
I think it is, for most people, it's relaxing. For people who are first learning crochet, I hope they have the patience to get over that hump, because it is a hump to first learn crochet. You've got to have both hands working. And if you're right-handed, then your left hand feels awkward. And I know from my experience in Embroiderers Guild that you can pretty much have a nice looking piece the first time you try to do embroidery, especially if it's stamped on the fabric. Whereas crochet, it's not going to look so good the first time. And I think when I started teaching children, I told them their homework was to make a chain as big as the perimeter of their bedroom. And that's the kind of thing that you really have to just be willing to accept, that your chain is not going to look good at first. And by the time you make one that big, you've got it. And then the next stitch, and also to know that there's only basically 3 stitches. It's all variations. And that's where the free form comes in. You can do all these variations by just wrapping 6 times or 8 times, whatever you want to do. It's not going to kill you, and you just rip it out. That's another thing. Accept that ripping is part of crochet. If you don't want to rip, then you're going to be frustrated, Some people are more perfectionists than others, of course, but just give it. And I think the friendships is a big thing, especially in a chapter. You get to know people really well. You've got this love that you share, and you see each other once a month, but that doesn't mean you're not going out to lunch with each other. You may go to other people's weddings. You make a blanket for the grandchild. All these kind of things, it becomes part of life. And it does become very relaxing as well once you've gotten over the beginning stages. So sit down and relax. It takes your mind off into other places, and it's all good.
Well, Gwen, I want to just thank you again for taking this time to speak with me and all of us, and
You're so
um,
welcome.
starting this amazing guild and giving us all an opportunity to come together and do good for the community, do good for ourselves, and do good for the art form itself. In that,
Mm,
crochet is one of the last remaining. There's a couple, but one of the last remaining art forms that can't be done by a machine. So it's an oxymoron anytime you see handmade crochet, because there's no other way to do it.
and I
Um,
do love that too.
yeah,
That's uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
have I'm a little snobbish about that, yes, and
Yeah.
I like to
Yeah.
remind everybody about that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the scary part to that is that it can go away if we don't keep it going. So CGOA is critical in doing that and keeping that art form going and inspiring and keeping us all moving in the forward momentum. Well, Gwen, you've
Sure.
been amazing. I hope you have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thank you for spending this time. And I hope to see you in the next 30 years.
Yeah. Right. So thank you so much, Sandra. It's been a pleasure meeting you too and having this chat. I loved it.
Thank you.
And I
You
love
have a
all
great day.
CGOA members.
Big hugs to everybody. Um,
Yes, for sure.
thank you. All
You're
right.
welcome.